Okay, we've been talking about graphing. So we talked about how to unravel the unit circle into sine, cosine, and tangent graphs. But what I want to do here is I want to show you some graphing shortcuts. So just write this on a random sheet of paper and write down graphing shortcuts. This will help you when we start taking the graphs and moving them left and right and up and down. You're not going to want to have to use the unit circle every single time when we start, especially moving them left and right. Okay, so let's start with just y equals sine x for a graph. And again, you kind of already know what that looks like because we took our values from the unit circle and built that official graph. But let me show you what it looks like just kind of in general. Okay, so we talked about how our graph for sine has a period, or we have one graph of sine every 2 pi. So I'm going to go from 0 to 2 pi, and then I'm going to mark my middle mark right here of pi, and then I'm going to have a middle mark here and a middle mark here. And in the future, I'm going to tell you that you don't have to label these two middle marks here and here. I'm going to go ahead and label them for today because they're just kind of easy. They're those in-between marks, so pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. And then the other thing that I'm going to do just to kind of help me is I'm going to number these little tick marks that I've made. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so when I talk about things with sine graph, I'm going to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so the trick to drawing a sine graph is that sine has zeros at 1, 3, and 5. And for today, those zeros, I'm sorry, you can't see, those zeros are going to be on the 0 line or on the x-axis. So we're talking about where it's touching or crossing the x-axis. Okay, so if sine has zeros at 1, 3, and 5, I'm going to touch the x-axis at 1, 3, and 5. Okay, and then as long as the sine graph has a positive in front of it instead of a negative, so as long as this right here is positive, I'm going to go up first. Okay, and we talked about on the unit circle that my highest value for sine is 1, and my lowest value for sine is negative 1, so I'm going to go up to 1 right here at pi over 2, and I'm going to go down to negative 1 right there at 3 pi over 2. So my sine graph looks a little bit like this, and I'll do another side of that just a second. And again, make that as nice and curvy as you can. Okay, and I'm going to graph 2 periods of this thing, so rather than continuing going that way, I'm actually going to go this other direction over here. So to get this way over here, I went positive 2 pi, so over here, I'm going to go to negative 2 pi, and right here is negative pi, and then I'm going to have my in-between marks, and again, you don't have to put numbers on those. You don't have to put numbers on 2 and 4, so you do need numbers on 1, 3, and 5, but not numbers on 2 and 4. Now, I'm going to go ahead and label these tick marks as well. What's tricky about this is that I need for the 1 from the right-hand side, so this 1 to overlap with 5 from over here. Otherwise, you'll have kind of a weird little gap in your graph. So that's going to be 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, like that. So 5 and 1 need to overlap, or you end up with a gap. And then I'm going to have zeros at 1, 3, and 5 for sine, which is already there. And I'm going to go up first. So I'm going to go up, and I'm going to go down. And when I say up first, I mean like from left to right, just like you read. So I'm going to be here, and here, and again, as curvy, nice and curvy and clean as you can. Okay. So again, when we take that sine graph and we start moving it left and right and up and down, all of these numbers in here will change, but this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will stay the same, and sine always has zeros on the 0 line at 1, 3, and 5. Okay, let's do the same thing for cosine really quickly. So for cosine, we're going to have zeros at 2 and 4, and with cosine, we're going to start up. So unless this thing is negative, our graph of cosine is going to start up. All right, so start by making you some axes, and I'm going to label them just exactly the same as I did up there. So if you need to pause the video for just a second and get your labels on there, you can. Again, same thing. We don't need to label 2 and 4, but we do need to label 1, 3, and 5. Alright, so this time with cosine, I'm going to have zeros at 2 and 4. And with cosine, I'm going to start up. So I'm going to start up at 1, and then come down to -1, and then back up to 1. And you just keep going up and down forever and ever, just like you're exercising. Okay, then again, same thing on the other side, so you can get your labels on there. If you need to pause the video and do your labels, you can. And that'll be 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And cosine has zeros at 2 and 4. And we're going to start up. So up and down and back up again. And what you'll notice here is that they touch. That needs to happen for these graphs. And it'll look a little bit of something like that. Okay, then tangent looks just a little bit different. Tangent has asymptotes because of our undefined areas. So last one, let's take a look at tangent. So with tangent, I'm going to have zeros at 1, 3, and 5, and asymptotes, which I'm going to reduce down to that, asymptotes at 2 and 4, not 2 and 2, 2 and 4. What's different about a tangent graph is that you actually draw 2 periods of it just in one little area here. So I'm really just going to go from 0 pi out to 2 pi. And remember, the period is how often a graph repeats. So you'll see that a tangent graph actually repeats pretty frequently. Okay, label your tick marks, 1, 2, 3, and 4. With tangent, we're going to go up and up and up forever, and down and down and down forever, so we don't need any labels on our y-axis. Tangent has zeros at 1, 3, and 5. And then I'm going to use my highlighter to do my asymptotes. So asymptotes are those vertical dotted lines that we can't touch or cross. So 2 and 4. And from my first zero right here, I'm going to go up towards my asymptote without touching or crossing it. And then this is kind of weird. At number 3 here, I'm going to go backwards and kind of down towards my asymptote. And that right there is actually one period of tangent. So if I go and draw towards this asymptote and towards this asymptote, then I actually have 2 periods of tangent. Here's one right here, and then here's one over here. One up and one down gives you 2 periods of a tangent graph, and that's really all that you need. So you don't have to go and draw the other end. You can. It continues to go in both directions, but you don't have to.